Hello, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm brand new to streaming on YouTube, so this is all new to me. If you can hear me, give me some feedback in the chat. I'm going to try and keep a close eye on the chat. Good. Okay, you can hear me. Thank you all so much for showing up. I've got 3 monitors that I'm just trying to manage here. I'm trying to figure out where the best place to put this chat is. I have a tiny teleprompter that I could stick it on. Let me see. I'm going to pop out the chat. We're going to move it there and see what it looks like. That's not bad. Okay, I might do this so I can read and be looking at you at the same time. Okay, let me know in the chat where you're coming from. There are so many of you. This is amazing. 127 people in this stream. This is so cool. Thank you all for being here. This is going to be a really fun workshop. We're going to make a fun project in Rive. If this is your first time in Rive, no problem. I'm going to show you how to set everything up with the project file that you hopefully have already downloaded. If you have not, let me quickly give you a link. I can't type and talk at the same time. What is it called? Workshop, right? Rive workshop. Take this. I'm going to drop it in the chat right now. If you do not have the project files yet, click on the link I just put in the chat, fill out the form, click sign up. That will grant you access. You should get an email that will let you download the files that you need to follow along today. All right. Now I can catch up on these comments. Germany, Eugene, Oregon, France, Pittsburgh, Florida, Indonesia, Germany, Los Angeles, Boston, Brazil, Atlanta, Texas. This is incredible. Reppin' Ben Rector. Yeah, I just saw him last night. He was here in Denver. It was my first time seeing Ben Rector. Pretty fun concert. Okay. Wow, there's so many people. I don't have time to read all of them. It's just me. I don't have anyone monitoring the comments because I'm home alone. Pixel is down on my feet. He's hopefully going to be quiet and just fall asleep. But it's so good to see all of you here. Let's get this stream going. I'm going to show you what we're doing here. I've got Rive open. This project, the reason I'm doing this workshop is because I just created a course or released a course called Rive for Motion Designers that is designed to teach you how to use Rive, and it's especially useful, or I'd say easy to take in if you have an After Effects background. It's kind of taught from that perspective, but After Effects experience isn't required. All right, so you downloaded and unzipped the file, couldn't get it into Rive. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do that. But this is the project that we're going to recreate over about the next hour or so, I'm guessing. This is a day to night scene with an interactive toggle switch that will switch back and forth between the 2 different scenes. So this is what we're going to create. If you have the project files, let me show you how to get it into Rive. So first of all, you can work in the browser or on the desktop version. I like working in the desktop version just because it feels like more of a dedicated app. But what you need to do, once you've unzipped the download and you have the .rev file, go to your personal files section right here on the left. And you're going to drag and drop this .rev file directly into this section. It'll take a second to import, but there it is. So I just imported the exact same file that you have. That's the one we're going to be working from. So double click into that, and that's where we're going to start. All this is artwork. There's no animation or interactivity set up on this yet. So I'm seeing somebody else had the same problem. Hopefully that explanation gets you where you need to be. That's really all you need to get the artwork so you can follow along. All right, let me just check my notes, make sure I'm not forgetting to tell you anything before we get started. We're going to be making this interactive. I'm going to do my best. I see that my camera's a little out of sync here. I'm going to do my best to make sure that my camera is not covering up stuff. So actually I am going to need to move my chat out of the way just so I can see everything a little bit more clearly on my teleprompter. Let me get this in an easy to view spot. But now I can see myself. I'm I'm notorious for forgetting where my camera feed is, but I will try to move it around like this when necessary. Will this be recorded? Yes, this will be recorded, which I forgot to hit the record button. I guess I'll do that as a backup right now. Um, but the live stream, it exists on YouTube, and I will be able to repost it, so it should be available for replay shortly after the recording. Okay, it worked. You're good. Okay, imported. All right, so here we go with Rive. If you've never seen Rive before, but you've worked in Figma, it probably looks pretty familiar. If you haven't used either before, it's probably pretty brand new. So let me just quickly give you an overview. First of all, really important, up in the top right corner, there are two modes, design and animate mode. I'm going to be switching back and forth between these two a lot. The tab key is the keyboard shortcut for that. So if you see this state machine area, this timeline area appear and disappear a lot, it's because I'm pressing tab. Okay, so over on the left side, this is where our artwork lives. We have artboards just like in Illustrator or Photoshop. So you can click between them by clicking on their names. We've got the house artboard and the night artboard. House is where we're going to build our interactivity. An artboard is going to be just like a comp in After Effects. It's going to export at that size. The great thing about Rive, it's 100% vector as long as we're not using raster images. So it can scale to any size even after you export it. What we're going to do is create this interactivity that switches between this scene and completely customize how that transition happens. And it's really interesting. It's a very different way of thinking than how we animate inside of After Effects. So on the left side is our hierarchy. So you can see that we have things clearly labeled. Thanks to Ben Marriott, that's something I do every project. So this little icon on the left, you'll see this top level hierarchy element. It can collapse and expand. It's a group. This is kind of like a null object in After Effects. It has an actual position point, but we're going to be using groups to group different elements. Now, I'm going to do my best to keep this about an hour. I naturally want to explain absolutely everything, but I'm going to try and really pare this down. So if you have questions that are not related to directly what we're doing right now, I will have a time at the end once we've created the project that you can ask questions. And just to answer your question in the chat, I see, will this be recorded? Yes, this will be replayable shortly after. All right, so we can move around just by holding the space bar, very similar to After Effects. What I want to do is, since my project artwork is all here, I don't have to do anything else with the hierarchy or anything. We need to start setting up some states of our scene, which in this case, there's just two. There's a day state and a night state, but we need a way to transition between the two. So really, this artwork is only here so that we have access to the additional elements like the moon and the stars, but then everything else is just to reference the colors, essentially. So we're going to create a day state or keyframe a day state, and then we'll build out our night state. So let's switch over into design or into animate mode. Press the tab key to do that. I gotta catch my breath. Everybody take a deep breath. I feel like I'm talking really fast and I can tell that I'm not breathing enough. All right, so F should frame your selection. That's the keyboard shortcut. If it's not working, close it and open it again. Sometimes that happens to me. So F to frame your selection. So if I clicked on just the house and pressed F, it's going to zoom into there. Grab the artboard, press F to zoom to here. What we're looking at here in animate mode is the state machine. And this actually is not what we're going to go to immediately. We're going to come back to this. This is the real magical part of Rive and state-based animation. What we want is this default timeline 1, which is blank. And this looks a lot more like a traditional timeline in After Effects or Premiere, right? Did I create the artwork in Illustrator and bring it into Rive? Yes, good question. I thought about showing that process, but it's literally as easy as copying and pasting. You can copy from Illustrator and paste directly into Rive. It's pretty awesome. Same thing with Figma. You just have to say copy as SVG. Thanks for the support. Okay, so in this timeline, we need to set keyframes on the properties that we want to record this state as. And in this case, it's going to be a whole lot of colors. So let me move my camera just a little bit, not that far. And we need to take a look over here on the right side. This is our inspector. It is where all of the properties of our selection and things in our artboard are going to exist. This is where we change things. But if you scroll down in this list, there's not a scroll bar, so I'm just using my mouse scroll wheel. You'll see that since I have the entire artboard selected, I can see every single color that's being used in this artwork. And there's a keyframe icon next to each one of them since I'm in animate mode. If I was in design mode, that wouldn't be there. That's really handy because that's basically the first thing that I need to keyframe for this state. Before we do that, let's just double click on timeline 1 and we'll call this day. So this is our day state timeline. Okay, cool. Yeah, name that timeline. Hey, I didn't even see your comment. It just happened. So, but thank you for the thought. Okay, so the colors on the right side, I want to set a keyframe basically on every single color. And I can do that just by clicking and dragging down the line, just like in After Effects. Feels very similar, right? I missed 2 of them. There we go. Now I have keyframes and those properties showing up, or those objects showing up in my timeline. They're named the same as what we'd see up here. Some of them are better labeled than others. I didn't, I didn't name this section of the chimney and that section of the chimney. But the point is, we just keyframed every single color that is available in this artboard. And that's pretty much what we need for our first state. There are other things like the sun moving, the clouds moving, and this toggle switch that we will get to in just a little bit. But let's start simple and just keyframe the colors. How is that simpler than After Effects? Wait till we get to the animation, okay? Wait till we see some interactivity. All right, so we've got day. Now I'm just going to right click on this and I'm going to duplicate it and call it night. Now all of my keyframes are still there. I think I'm just going to delete them all. So I'm going to select all of these keyframes just by clicking and dragging and press delete. That one too. And we're just going to start changing colors and we'll see how that affects things. So let's just start with the hill. I'm going to control or command click on that hill object. That's called a deep selection. So it goes through the group that it belongs to and it selects that element. Now that that's selected, we can take a look at our inspector and it allows us to change things about it. I see a comment or a question. Does Rive have a difficult learning curve or is it pretty intuitive? If you're familiar with After Effects, I think it's very intuitive. If you're familiar with Figma and After Effects, then you will feel right at home. It's like Figma with animation. All right, so for this color, simple thing, right? We need to change this color. We can click on the swatch. We can change it to whatever we want. I want to use the eyedropper. So I'm going to select that and then click on the night version of the hill color. I actually didn't even need to click into that swatch. I could have just pressed I for the eyedropper and clicked right there. But now we've got a keyframe for the night version of that. And we just want to do this down the line for everything in the scene. So let's grab the background, which is actually the artboard. Artboards in Rive can have background colors. So with my artboard selected, the top level of my hierarchy, I'm going to again press I, and then I'm going to click on that background. Now, why did that make everything go away? Don't use the eyedropper. That's why. It's because everything within it just changed. Just go back into the swatch, use the eyedropper there. Now we're just changing the background, the artboard. Okay, so 2 things down. Let's keep going. We got to change the face of the house, right? Controller command click into that. Since it's just that object selected, I can press I and select that color. And I'm going to do that for each one of these objects. Not a very exciting process, but a necessary one. Now, you might have noticed that glow that I have on the lights and the stars. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a bit too. Where is that doorknob? This is hard to see. There it is. Is that it? Yep. Okay. So just continue down the line. We've got a door or a window frame. You can also use the middle mouse button to temporarily switch to the hand tool, spacebar or mouse. And you can zoom in and out. Sorry, you can zoom in and out by holding controller command and using the mouse wheel or pressing plus or minus. How are we doing in the chat? He makes everything seem so simple. Hey, Kyle's here. So everybody say hi to Kyle, my marketing specialist strategist who's helping me grow my channel and make better content for all of you. He's supposed to be on vacation right now. I don't know why he's in the chat, but thanks for being here, Kyle. All right, so next up, we've got the roof. I'm going to deep select just this panel, and let's continue down the line. Is everybody following along okay? or just watching. That's also totally fine if you're just watching. Just want to make sure this is all going well for everybody. But yeah, this is a very simple, straightforward process. We're just changing colors, right? It's going to get a lot more exciting once we finish everything. All right, why don't we do these windows? So in this case, there's a glow set to this. So there's a new feature, relatively new feature of Rive called vector feathering that allows us to do glows and shadows. And I want to copy that entire style because you look over here with that selected, there are two fills. This is a layerable style, which you can do in Illustrator and After Effects. But I want to copy both at once. And to do that, I'm going to right click and say copy styles, or Control Alt C if you're on a PC. With that done, I can come over to my windows in the day mode. Make sure you're still on the right artboard. You see how my timelines have changed. I need to go back into the house artboard and then make sure you're on the right timeline. And I will paste these, Control Alt V, and it didn't work. What? Hang on. Let's try it again. With just one selected, glass, right click, copy styles. Go back to this artboard. Glass, right click, paste styles. It's not working, guys. Gonna close and go back in. Paste styles. Okay. Well, we're just gonna have to do it manually. It worked yesterday. Okay, I'm gonna copy the first color. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna paste. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to copy the second color. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say paste. And I'm going to increase the opacity. How opaque should that be? 100%. Okay, so we're just going to increase that to 100%. I don't know. That worked for me yesterday. I'm not sure why it didn't work just now. But other than this bug, why do not copy styles for all color switches? Why not the eyedropper? Yeah, I would like to see that. Illustrator can get really buggy with the way that it applies styles, but it'd be nice to have a way to quickly do that. Now that it's in the same artboard, let's try. I'm going to copy styles. I'm going to go to this window, this glass, and I'm going to paste styles. Wow. Something is amuck. I'm not going to let it bother me though. We're going to power through this together. I'm going to copy and paste the hex codes. I'm going to copy the opacity values, and we're going to be just fine. All right, we got our glows. What are we missing? Anything in the scene? We need to change the toggle colors. Let's grab that. And same thing here. This should be the same style. Let's see if I can copy styles from this one and paste styles. It doesn't want to do it. What is up, guys? Okay. We're all right. We're doing just fine. And boom. Okay. Those are all the colors that need to change. Obviously, the sun and the clouds need to go away, but let's just start there. We're going to make some interactivity now. This is where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. So we've set our keyframes. Normally in After Effects, you just keyframe the colors, right? Not in Rive. That's not how we're going to do this. Let's jump over to the state machine. Now, this is node-based, scary, right? Nobody wants nodes. I don't know why you don't want nodes. Nodes are great. They're fantastic. And this is the simplest node setup ever. It's just going to represent where we are in our scene at any given time. When we hit this play button, we are entering runtime. That is what Rive calls this. It's not an MP4 video file that has a start and an end. It's just the beginning of our scene. It's going to play back. And depending on how we set up the state machine, it's going to display different things. And with all of our different states, we can change what it's displaying at any given point and make that interactive. Right now, we have the entry point. So when somebody sees this player, when it begins, it's going to go directly into this first timeline, which by default was day. I can stop my state machine and click on that timeline and change it right over here in the inspector and change it to night. And if I press play, we're going to see the night version instead of the day version. Pretty straightforward. But what's cool about the state machine is that we don't have to have just one timeline. So I'm going to grab this any state and exit node, and I'm just going to move them over here. We're not going to need them today. And then I'm going to grab my day timeline and drag it back out. So I have a day timeline and a night timeline, and I can move them around. I want the entry to go today. So with this little dot that's existing around any one of these nodes, just click and drag and point it at day and then let go. And we've got an arrow now that's moving there. Think of these arrows and connections like roads. This is a one-way street from the entry point into day. We also have one into night. I don't want one going into night from the entry point, so I'm going to select it and press delete. Bye-bye. So now we have a road that takes us to day, but we need a road that takes us to night. So let's click and drag from day to night. And now if I hit play, it goes straight to night. Why is that? It's because our one-way street has no stop signs, no traffic lights, nothing saying, hey, Rive, we shouldn't go tonight yet. So we need to create that traffic system, that traffic control. To do that, I'm going to select this arrow and let's just change it over here in the inspector. This is where we can change in our transition controls. You see it has a 0 millisecond duration. That means it's instant. There is no transition between this day to night state. It's just instantly happening. If I change this duration to say 500 milliseconds, which is half of a second, you kind of have to start thinking in milliseconds with Rive because of how it handles playback. But with this 500 millisecond duration, now if I play the state machine, we've got this nice half-second transition. Very nice. If I stop it and play it again, we're going to see that nice and easy. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Press play. And now we've got this transition. But obviously, we don't want it to just happen automatically. We want to be able to control that. We also want to be able to get back so that it's a two-way street. So let's click and drag from night to day and give that transition 500 milliseconds as well. So now we've got our two-way street going back and forth. And when you play the state machine, it's just bouncing back and forth. This street is just constant traffic because nobody's telling it to stop. And that's what we need to do next. But actually, before we do that, let me show you something really fun. If you scroll down right here, it's a little hard to see, probably especially on my screen recording or my stream. But there's an interpolation panel. If I select both of these transitions at once, this looks a whole lot like flow in After Effects, and it works exactly the same way. Currently, we have a linear interpolation between states. But if I click on this curve right here, it's going to give us cubic easing between those states. And if I modify the curve, it's going to respect whatever we do to it. So I'm controlling the interpolation between these two different states without having to set actual keyframes other than the initial state keyframe. I'm controlling how that transition looks right here in this palette. We can even do some elastic stuff, which we're going to take a look at with the sun and the moon. But we need to deal with this constant motion, right? It's not supposed to go back and forth. So without us changing things. So why don't we set up, do I want to do that first? Yeah, let's set up a condition. So this little sideways panel right here, it says inputs. Oh, I forgot to delete those out of there. Okay, your project file probably has all of this stuff set up already. Expand out the inputs and the listeners. If you see all of that, just click the minus button. We're going to start over from scratch. Clear out your inputs and listeners. Now, an input, we're going to start with input. So I'm going to collapse up listeners. An input is basically like an expression control in After Effects. We have the option to have a number, like a slider value, a Boolean, like a checkbox, or a trigger, which is not like any expression controls. That's just a moment in time, basically. What we want is the Boolean. And we're going to rename this Boolean by double-clicking on it, and we'll just call it... I'm trying to think through how I had it set up originally, but this Boolean is going to control the transition going from one state to the other. So we're going to say is night, and I'm going to type it like that. Is night. So if it is night, it should be checked. If it is not night, it will not be checked. Yes, trigger is an event like a mouse click or a hover in an area. Yes, very true. Thank you, Matt. Okay, so we got our checkbox, and I want to set it up to control this transition. So I'm going to select both at once. We can do two at once. Actually, let's simplify it. It's your first time in Rive. I'm going to do one at a time. So on this one-way street from day to night, I want to set up a condition, which we do down in this menu where my camera is. Let me move that over to the left. Click on this button right here with that transition selected. We now have a condition that's just like an if-else statement in expressions. if, and then I need to choose something, is night, that input is going to show up here. If is night is true, that's what is going to be the condition that will allow this transition to happen. It will be the condition for the transition condition. All right, so now if I hit play, we're going to stay on day. We're not transitioning to night until I check this box. Oh, but then we go back and it keeps going until I uncheck this again. And that's because we didn't set up the reverse condition. So let's stop our state machine, grab the second street going back to day, and set up a condition there. I'm going to click on plus condition. We're going to say if is night is false or unchecked, then we can come back to day. So I'm going to click play. I'm going to check that on, and I'm going to uncheck it. And now I get to determine when that traffic light is red or green and getting back and forth between those two states. This is the very basics of state-based animation inside of Rive. We're triggering things that allow you to switch between states. It doesn't have to be controlled by a trigger. As you saw, we just had that 500 millisecond back and forth. That's totally fine. But the way that we want to make this interactive, we're going to need this input. Now, these inputs are not accessible by the viewer at runtime. They're not going to be able to see them. How did I add this if statement condition? With the transition selected down at the bottom, click the plus button. That will add a new condition. Then select your input and set it to either true or false. Okay, hopefully that helps. Cool. Okay, so where was I? The checkboxes, these inputs are not accessible to the viewer at runtime. They're only visible to us here in Rive or by code. So not something that's front-facing at runtime. We need to set up a way for the user to be able to interact with these inputs without actually seeing them and checking them on and off. And that's what listeners are for. A listener is going to listen for a specific event within your scene. And in our case, we're going to use it to pay attention to where the mouse is and what it's doing. Now, for this is night checkbox, I don't actually want to control that with the mouse. I want to control that with a click of this toggle. So that might have sounded a little confusing. We are controlling it with the mouse and triggering it with the mouse, but we're going to do it. Yeah. I think I'm just trying to catch my train of thought here. But yes, we are going to use that input to trigger the whole thing. Basically, everything will be triggered by this. We'll get to the other motion elements. You think you missed something because it doesn't work for me. Check your transitions. Make sure each one has the is night input set as its condition. And for going to night, it needs to be set to true, meaning when this is checked, it goes to night, and coming back, it's set to false. So it will go back to day when it's unchecked. If you're not seeing a transition, like actual time, select both of these. Make sure your duration over here is set to 500 milliseconds. All right, moving on. So let's create some interactivity. Before we make why don't we... Trying to think of the best order to put this through. You'd think that I would thought of the order that I want to teach this before I'm live on YouTube, but I'm not. We're off the cuff here. We're going to do this. We're going to do it live. All right. What I want to do is set up something in my scene that allows this input or a listener to notice the mouse and then trigger this input. So I'm going to create what we call a hitbox. So I'm going to collapse up my hierarchy a little bit here. And inside of my scene group, we're doing it live. I'm going to press R. That brings up the rectangle tool. You can see all the shape tools up here. We're going to draw a rectangle right around. You know what? We don't even have to draw a rectangle. Let's keep it simpler. We're just going to use the rectangle that's already there. This is the toggle rectangle. And I'm going to just rename this toggle rectangle so I know it for sure what it is. With that selected, I'm going to click on the plus button in the listeners. Now, because I had that object selected, it did a little work for me. And I want to point that out just so you're aware of it. Look at the inspector over here on the right side. Toggle rectangle, what we just named, that is set in this field right here. This is our target object, meaning this listener is targeting that object. So since I had it selected, it automatically filled that in. If I were to create a listener with nothing selected, like that, nope, I still have the artboard selected. like that, it's going to be blank. You would have to click here and then choose a target. Since I had it selected, it not only set that as the target, but it also named the listener toggle rectangle. Now, I want to rename that listener because it needs to be a little bit more specific. What we're going to do is use this listener to determine whether or not the mouse is hovering over the toggle. So we're going to say toggle is hovering. Okay. And what what we need to do next is come over to this listener's options, and underneath that target, it's defaulted to the one that we want. Pointer enter. That means the pointer has entered the area that that object is occupying. We also have pointer exit, meaning the mouse is leaving. Pointer down, meaning the user has clicked down. Pointer up, meaning they've released. And pointer move, which is actually tracking the mouse. And then click, which is a down and up motion. We want pointer enter. It's defaulted to what we needed when toggle is hovering. Take a look down here at the base of our state machine. You can see that there is also a kind of condition here. So when this event happens, when the pointer has entered, we want to fire off what? We need to select an input. Since we only have one, it's only going to show up as is night. And that's not what I want to change. So what we need to do is make a new Boolean. So come over here, press plus, choose Boolean, and we're going to name this Boolean is hovering. And we're going to select that listener, choose this fire off menu, and now change this to is hovering and set it to true. So if I play my state machine again, this listener is now going to check is hovering when I move my mouse over that toggle object. It's not going to uncheck it yet because we haven't set up that interactivity, but it's working. I move my mouse over that toggle, it checks the box, and that is something we're going to be able to control things with. All right, so now that that's done, I'm going to make another listener. I'm going to duplicate the one we already have. We're going to say toggle is not, you know what? I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. We're going to call this toggle enter, and we're going to call this one toggle exit. That's a little more straightforward, I think. So toggle enter listener checks that on if we're hovering. Toggle exit, we're going to come down to this condition, which is still set to is hovering, and we're going to set it to false instead of true. Now, if I press play, when I move my mouse over the toggle, it checks the box. When I move my mouse outside, it didn't do it, guys. Oh, I know why. I do this all the time. It's because I named it toggle exit, but I didn't come over to the actual event that we should be listening to, which is not pointer enter, but pointer exit. Now we go over it, it checks it, we exit it, it unchecks. So we've got our first little bit of interactivity, even though it's not doing anything in our scene. Everybody with me? Are we good? I think we're doing well. All right. So we've got our checkbox interactivity. What's cool now is that we can use that to trigger other things. So let's keep it simple. Let's start with just this little dot of the toggle. When we hover, I want that to grow. So let's go over to our timelines, and I'm going to press plus. So new timeline, and we're going to call this toggle hover. And all I want to change about this timeline is the size of that circle. So from 20 pixels on the width and height, I'm going to select this little link proportion so they change at the same time. I'm just going to press the up arrow a couple times. Maybe we'll say 25. So it goes from 20 to 25. Now here's an interesting thing. The defaults are still recorded. The sizes that we set up in design mode, they're still there, but I still have to set a state of the defaults if I want to get back to it. So remember, these timelines we're thinking in terms of states, not really time. So toggle hover, that's increased in size. I'm going to duplicate this, call it toggle idle. Let me change this, idle. And we're going to change that back down to the size of the default size. So 20 and 20. So now I have my two different states, and I want to transition between them with the state machine. I'm going to drag my state machine back up here. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've already got my timelines, my two different states for day and night colors. So how can I incorporate, that just that little element of that circle growing? Well, that's what state machine layers are for. you can combine multiple timelines, multiple states, and have completely unique state machine setups in the same player using layers. So first of all, let's label this one. We're going to call it colors. Okay, this is our colors layer. But now I'm going to click plus, and this will be our toggle layers. Now, there are no timelines in here, so I need to click and drag toggle idle, and that's what we're going to go to for our entry point. We're going to bring in the toggle hover next, and you can put these however you want. I just like to make them like this. And we're going to connect idle to hover and hover back to idle. And we need to set up conditions again. So who remembers how to do this? We're going to select both this time, and we're going to press the plus button to add the same condition to both at the same time. We're going to choose if is hovering is true for one of them, false for the other. And that's where we need to specify. But just real quick, I'm going to change the duration to say 250 milliseconds, a quarter of a second, and I'll give it a little bit of easing. Actually, let's undo. Don't go, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Let's just set up the conditions properly. Going from idle to hover, we want is hovering to be true, and hover to idle, we want is hovering to be false. Hopefully that makes sense. This is saying if is hovering, this checkbox is unchecked or false, then we'll go back to idle. And if it is true, we'll go to hover. And that hover is being controlled by these listeners, or that checkbox, that Boolean, is being controlled by these listeners. All right, with that done, let's press play. Let's hover over, and look at that. Our circle grew ever so slightly, and it goes back and forth. But it's boring. That animation is ugly, right? It's linear. So let's select both of these at once and go to our interpolation panel. I'm going to switch it to cubic, and I'm going to really make it dramatic. I want it to very quickly pop into place and go back down. So now we've got our little first bit of interactivity working. When we hover, that grows. When I move out, it shrinks. Perfect. I think that looks great. Now, we haven't set up the colors yet, but we'll get to that in just a second. The next thing I want to do, what is the next thing I want to do? I know what the final result is going to be, but I think I want to, let's animate the switch moving when we click on it. So let's, again, make another listener. I'm going to stop my state machine. I'm going to select that object again and click the plus button on the listeners. Remember, Control or Command click on an object will deep select it. So click the plus button. I need a drink. Hold on. I love this. How many people do we have, by the way? 190. Holy cow. Thank you all so much for being here. This is amazing. Okay. What are we doing? We're making this new listener. So toggle rectangle, we're going to say toggle click. Is that what we want? Toggle click. I think so. Let me think through this. I don't want to make a mistake and then have to fix it. When we click on this, things will change. We don't have any clicking set up yet. It's always going to go back and forth. Yeah. All right. Let's set up a different input. So, well, before I do that, on this toggle click listener, we're going to come over to the event. And instead of pointer enter or any of these, we're going to listen for a click. So a click on this toggle rectangle. Okay. And then we're going to come over to our inputs and use the trigger input. And this is just like a radio button, and it fires off. Let's name this trigger toggle. Now we need to name it something different. We'll just say click. We'll just call it the click. This is the click trigger. And this toggle click, when we click on that object, we need to set that to fire off that click input. All right, so that doesn't do anything yet because we haven't set up any conditions with it, but that's what we're going to set up next. So do I want to do this in colors? Probably. Yeah. I think I'm deviating from my original setup for this, but I think it's going to work. So let's figure it out together. I've set up the colors transition, remember, to use that is night checkbox, but we can swap this to being click. Yeah, I think it's going to work, guys. Let's go back to our toggle. And we're going to call this toggle. Do we want to call it toggle hover? Yes. We're going to call this toggle hover. I'm having a hard time remembering how much of this I combined into one layer. I think I'm going to leave this layer as just the toggle hover interaction so that when we move over, that's all that's changing. And let's make another layer that we'll call, toggle click. I'm trying to condense as many layers as possible. I don't know. I think we're just going to have to do it this way. Toggle click or toggle switch. We'll just say click. Just keep it consistent. This is going to need 2 more states. So we've got toggle idle and hover. Let's add another timeline. We'll call this toggle day. And we're going to set a position keyframe on this handle. So just on the X position, I don't need a Y position keyframe. I'm going to set a keyframe for that state. I'll duplicate this. We're going to change it to toggle night. And we're going to change this to a different value, probably positive 20. Yes. So it's going back and forth between those 2 positions. And that's it. That is all we're putting in these 2 states. We're not modifying the colors. If you have conflicting keyframes between timelines of different states, you're going to have a bad time. It's not going to work out in the state machine when it sees that there are keyframes set on the same property for multiple timelines. So make sure that you don't have any errant keyframes between these timelines. So I'm not going to set any color stuff in this toggle night or toggle day, just the position. And let's set those up real quick. So toggle night, toggle day. We're going to start by going to toggle day. We're going to go over to toggle night, and we're going to come back to toggle day based on this click. So let's do this a little different way. This is another interesting way of creating conditions. You can right click on a transition. You can say create condition, and you can say click. There's our input, right? And that automatically sets up that transition. So this is going to transition to that toggle night when click is fired off and back to toggle day when it's clicked again. I need to give it a little bit of duration. So I'm going to come over to my inspector over here with both transitions selected. I'm going to change that up to say 300 milliseconds. Let's give it a little bit of interpolation. Again, I want this to be nice and snappy. You can hold shift to snap in vertical and horizontal directions. Does it feel like I've taught this course already, guys? Rive for motion designers. All right, state machine started. We're not moving to night until we click. Did it work? It worked. First try. Way to go, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. All right, we've got a toggle switch that now triggers back and forth, not even using a checkbox. We're just using this fire event. Anytime that happens, it fulfills the conditions we've set up for these transitions, and it works. Great. All right, we're making progress. I'm super happy. You see that other hover interactivity is still working because we're going over layers. We're combining them together. Now, here's another interesting thing about Rive. If I do this fast enough, you see how that animation isn't really keeping up with it? It's because these transitions have to complete before they go to the next condition, unless you select them and say allow exit during transition. So check that on, and now watch what happens. Much more satisfying, much more responsive. That's going to work. I think we're going to do the same thing on this layer. Select those, allow exit during transition, and now I can click this as fast as I want, as opposed to only being able to do it once the animation is completed. So allow exit during transition. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. And this is what I really, really like about Rive, because you can layer these things. You can isolate and compartmentalize things and work on them in different states. Now, I see a comment that's saying that avoiding overlapping keyframes was a bit confusing. Let me show you what would happen. I think if I set a position keyframe on this object in, say, our day state, I'll set an X position keyframe, and I come to my state machine, and I move this layer to the end. I think it works in a linear hierarchy here. Now my position's not moving. It's saying, oh, you know what? We found a different X position keyframe in the colors timeline, and we're just going to use that one instead. That's the issue with conflicting keyframes. That's what I meant by conflicting keyframes. So I want to absolutely make sure I do not include a keyframe in my colors states that are being used in a different state. So I'm going to delete that position keyframe, and I'm going to set this back, set this back up, and we're back in business. Okay, everybody on board. Should be good to go. What should we do next? Let's control that color shift using the same trigger. So I'm going to select both of these and we're going to delete those transitions. It was a good learning exercise, but we don't need it. Pixels awake, everybody. All right, so we're back and forth to this nonstop street that just is constant flow of traffic. What we need to do is select these two and set up our new condition. Let's do the right click method. So right click, create condition, and click. So now it's not going to happen until we click. And we've already created that user interactivity. We again need to make sure to allow exit during transition because we've just accidentally gotten our two different layers out of sync. But now we should be able to go back and forth. Beautiful. Okay, I hope everybody's excited about this. This is pretty cool stuff. I really, really like making interactive motion design. Okay, we good? Another drink. Matthew, thank you so much for being in the chat and being helpful. I'll see you around Discord. All right, next up, let's get some actual motion going on here with our scene, right? There's not that much left. It's really gonna go by quicker than you think. We are at 46 minutes. We're so good, guys. This is going so well. Let's animate the sun and the moon. That would be fun, right? Let's start with the sun and the moon. All right, so find your sun. There's the sun group, and we need to copy the moon over into here. Very important, switch to design mode. If you start doing stuff design-wise in animate mode, it's going to add keyframes where you don't think of it, and you don't realize it, and things are gonna mess up, and you're gonna have to do some investigative work to figure out where those conflicting keyframes are. How did we change the color of the switch? That was in the day-night toggle. So these are let's rename these. We're going to call these colors day and colors night, just to be a little bit more organized. So these are our two colors states, and that's where all of that stuff changes. Okay, next, sun and moon. We need to grab the moon from this artboard. So in this artboard with it selected, let's find the moon, which is right here. Just and let's grab the stars while we're at it. We'll copy both of these together and jump back over to this artboard, and we're going to paste it and drag it into our scene. Now I'm going to move it down to the base right below the sun, actually, and we'll just rename this. We don't need the two after the moon or the stars. So they're in the scene. Hey, who noticed that I'm still in animate mode? Get in design mode. Take my own advice here. Now, these are going to show up in our artboard in design mode. It looks strange. Don't worry too much about it. Now that I'm back in design mode, let's go back to animate mode. Tab into animate mode, and let's set up these states. So we've got toggle day, toggle night. We need to set up some timelines for scene day and scene night. So we're going to call this new timeline scene day. Actually, this one let's do specifically for the sun and the moon. We're going to call this sun. Let's just simplify it. Sky day. And we'll duplicate this and we'll call it sky night. All right, during the day, do we see the stars? Not usually. So let's grab those stars and open up that group. You can choose however you want to animate this. It could be fun to have them rotating, but I don't have stars on the other sides of them. So I think we're just going to scale them down. That's how I did it in mine. You can change. That's the other great thing about this. You can change things in the state or the timeline after it's all set up and animating the way you want it to in the state machine, and it just works. So maybe I'll show you that if we have time. But in this stars group, just shift click on all of the objects in here all at once. Motion by Nick in the chat. What is up, Nick? Thank you for showing up. Make a selection of all of your objects. And we're going to set 0% scale keyframes here. Just link the X and Y first, and then press 0 to set keyframes on every single one of those objects individually, so they all just disappear. Now let's close up that stars group, go into sky night. Actually, I shouldn't have closed that group. Go into sky night, our second state, select those again, and set a keyframe on the X and Y scale at 100%. All right, now again, it looks a little weird since the colors are not the night colors, but it's fine. We'll set it up. It'll all layer together in the state machine just fine. I see, Miles, you're having trouble importing the Rev file. Make sure you go to the personal files section, drag and drop the Rev file directly here. That's how you import it. Make sure it's unzipped. .rev, drag it in here. It will load and you'll be able to open it up. All right, so we've got our stars set. Let's do the moon. Now, for this sun and moon, I want it to look like it's orbiting around the scene. Oh, yeah, that's why I needed to have these separate. Okay. I just remembered something. Since we set the keyframes on here, let's just call this stars day and stars night. I want to animate the sun and moon with some bounciness that I don't want the stars to have. So let's add another timeline and call this one sun plus moon day. Yeah, that makes sense. So I want this to orbit around the scene, like it's the sun rising and setting, right? And so I want that to happen right about here in the scene. And to do that, I need to create basically a null object, or in Rive, they're called groups. So I'm going to press G, and that brings me to the group tool. And I can just click anywhere in the scene to have this empty object. I'm doing this in design mode, and look, we just set keyframes. So delete that keyframe, get into animate mode, get into design mode, and change the position here. This is the default state of your artboard. So I'm going to center that up on the X. You could do that a number of ways. I just typed half of the artboard's width. But right about there, that's where I want things to rotate. And just so I can see it, I'm going to choose the style here and change it to target. So now we can see that visually on the screen. All right. Back into animate mode. I'm going to use this as a hierarchical element. I'm going to drag it above the sun, and I'm going to call this sun rotation. I'm going to drag the sun into that group. And now it's going to add a keyframe when I do this, but if I click and drag on this circle, it's going to rotate the sun around. And that is what I wanted. Now that I'm seeing it, I think that's a little too high up in my artboard. So let's go back into animate mode, get the sun out of there, move the sun rotation down to about here, then put the sun back inside. So now that will rotate, yeah, further off the edges. I think that's going to work better. All right, tab back into animate mode. Nope, tab back into design mode. We're going to duplicate that, get rid of the sun, and we're going to call this moon rotation. So we have a group in the exact same spot that we're going to use for the moon. So let's drag this down just above moon. I think that just put it inside the sun. No, it didn't. Okay, we're good. Going to grab the moon and put that inside of that group. And now we can rotate the moon independently from the sun. Cool. I think we're good. Let's go back into animate mode. And for the day, the moon needs to be rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise. So let's rotate it this way. I can hold shift and snap it to 180 degrees counterclockwise. That sets a keyframe for day. For the moon for the day, we need to set a keyframe for the sun as well on that rotation. So do that. So that's our day state. Let's duplicate, and we're going to call this sun plus moon night. Drink. All right, for the night, we need to rotate the moon back to 0 degrees, so it's straight up in the sky. We need to rotate the sun 180 degrees positive, that direction. So those are our two sun and moon states. Let's go into our state machine now. I'm going to drag this to the top of my list, and we need another layer. We're going to call this sun and moon, and drag out those two states. So sun, moon, day, that's our entry state. This is a lot of repetition at this point. So hopefully this is starting to make a little bit more sense to you of what we're doing. We need to set up this same kind of transition between the day and night states for the sun and the moon. So what's our condition? Clicking. So we're going to right click on these transitions. Look for the click. What's the duration? I'm not sure yet. Let's do a half a second, 500 milliseconds. Let's hit the play button and see what happens. If I move this over and click, look at that. Our sun and moon are transitioning, but it's linear. And for this case, I want to make this a little more fun. I don't want to just do basic cubic easing. I want to come over to elastic. This is automatically calculated, adjustable overshoots. So just with the default settings, now if I click, look at that. It's overshooting. I didn't have to do any keyframing. I didn't have to do anything in the value graph. Wouldn't it be easier to use any state for the sun and moon animation? I don't know that'd be easier. I think it could be done. But since I don't have a ton of different states to go between, are you saying like doing that together in one layer? Maybe. I like working in layers. Can I explain what I did in the sun, moon, night, and sun, moon, day layers? All I did was rotate the controllers that we built. So remember, we put groups in our artboard and we put the sun in its own group and the moon in its own group that is located down here so that we can rotate around there. All I did was set keyframes on the rotation for those two different objects. And then in the state machine, we linked them up here and triggered them with the same condition we're using for basically everything, which is that click trigger. Now, I think that's a little fast. I'd like to slow it down. So let's grab that transition and bump it up to maybe 800 milliseconds and see if that looks a little bit better. How do you have them show up in the timeline? You have to add a keyframe on a property for it to show up in the timeline. You have to use a null for the axis point. Is there a way to specify the axis point similar to After Effects? There is. There is a way to do it. If I were to have grabbed this object and press Y, this switches to the freeze tool, which is the same thing as the anchor point tool. It would allow me to move this down here, but I prefer to use groups and keep my axes centered. So that's why I didn't do that. Duration, we're at 800 milliseconds. I think that looks pretty good. Honestly, I think the default elastic looks fine, but if you wanted to adjust it, just scroll down to the bottom of the interpolation. What Discord are people using for Rive? There's an official Rive Discord. I also have a Discord. Check out both of those. If you come down to these amplitude and period, this is like amplitude and frequency. I can decrease the amplitude and then it won't overshoot quite as much. I could increase or actually decrease this to have more frequency. Now it's going to be a lot bouncier. So play around with that. Get something that you like. But I think the defaults of 1 and 1 for this scene, it works pretty well. Yes, this will be viewable after the stream is done. Don't worry about it. You can always come back and watch the replay. All right, so sun and moon transitioning. I need to set up allow exit during transition. Make sure you check that on so that the moon doesn't end up out during the day and the sun at night. But there we go. I think that's working well. We still got 149 people here. Thank you, guys. We're just crossing the hour mark right now. Thanks for sticking with me. We're almost done. But that's the elastic interpolation. Pretty fun thing in Rive, right? Let's get these clouds out of the way. The reason why I didn't want to do this all on the same timeline was because of that elastic interpolation. I wanted to set that up specifically for the sun and moon, and I want everything else to basically be linear. So you know what? We can call this sky day and sky night because we're going to do the clouds at the same time. Let's just grab the day layer and we're going to control or command click on these two clouds and set X position keyframes. And then on the sky night, we're going to move those out of the way. Now you would think that if you grab just the X axis, it's only going to add a keyframe on the X, but take a look over here. It also adds a Y. I think I'm going to talk to Rive about that. I don't like that behavior. Since I can grab just one, I would like to only change that property, but I'm going to change it just by simply moving the cloud with that value over here. Same thing here. I'm going to grab that one, move it out to the side. So at night, clouds are out of the way. Stars are out. During the day, clouds are in, stars are gone. Let's set that up as a layer. Duplicate. You know what? We can do this even quicker. Let's choose colors and duplicate it. Right click, duplicate, and we're going to call this sky. And we're going to change the timeline source and preserve all the conditions we already have. So with colors day, I'm going to change that to be the timeline of sky day. And colors night, we're going to change that to sky night. And we've got 500 milliseconds, same interpolation. Let's see how it looks when we click. Beautiful. Clouds move, stars show up. Now, if you don't want to see these objects outside of your artboard, you know, when it goes to render them at runtime, you're not going to see them. But if in the editor you don't want to see them, let's just make a clipping mask, which I think I have to make. Let me just check something real quick. If I grab the clouds, clip. Oh, there's a clip group. This is an artifact of something I forgot to change with the project files I gave you. You're going to see this clip path, which is actually empty. There's nothing here. Get rid of that. Press the minus button. We're going to make a clip path. This is how we do masking inside of Rive, essentially, or clip groups, clip paths. Press R to make a rectangle, and then just click and drag while holding Shift. And we're going to immediately come over to our inspector. Make sure you're in design mode. Get into design mode. We're going to change the size to the size of the artboard, 500 by 500, and we're going to center it up so it fills the entire thing. I want to use this as a clip group for the objects in my scene. Since I have a group that has everything in the scene, I can use that as the clip object or the clip source. So click on your scene group, come over to click plus, and now it says pick a shape to use as a clipping source. So I could actually just click on this rectangle, or I could click on it in the hierarchy. Either way, now nothing is going to go outside or be visible outside of this box, but I can't see through it. Fortunately, if I get rid of this fill just by clicking on the minus, it's gone, but it's still going to act as a clip group. So let's go back to animate mode, play this, and now you'll see clouds, sun, moon, they're all just going to be clipped to the artboard. I like that better. All right, now, what happened to my clouds? Oh, that wasn't an artifact. Guys, I told you to do something that broke something. Go back into your clouds. Cloud 1. Thank you. I'm just noticing it too. Clip path. That was actually, so it's good. We're just trying this. We're doing the exercise again. Here's how we make a clip path. Select that ellipse, which is made up of a bunch of ellipses, but find the clip section in your inspector, click plus, choose the target of clip path, and we're safe again. Everybody, we're good. Crisis averted. Can you use the artboard? I didn't think you could use the artboard. Maybe you can. Let's find out. Live. We're doing it live. Scene, clip, artboard. Does it work? Nope. I don't think it works. Can't do an artboard. Nope. Undo. We're back. We're clipped. It works. We're good. Okay. Now, if you're happy with the way that the colors change, which I think I am, good. But if you're not, if you ever want to adjust anything, remember, it's all just controlled between these transitions. So if you wanted to have different easing, you can change this at any point. What's going on? Just had to reset it there. But now that's going to respond differently. See how there's a lag now from the color shift. Nothing else, because we're just working on the colors layer. I think it's fine the way it was. So yeah, I think we're going to keep that good. Checking up. You can use a clip of an artboard. The artboard has a clip toggle. Oh, I forgot about that. Select the artboard. Where is it? You said it's top right of the inspector. Is that this? That's the, there it is. That's simpler. That's definitely simpler. You can clip anything to the artboard just by doing that. Boom, boom. I don't know why it's not disabling, but let's see if it worked. Yep, it worked. Thank you for the tip. I had forgotten about that. Okay. I think we have everything set up, guys. I think we just finished our project. Like I said, since everything is layered up, it's all set, our transitions are created, you can change anything about these states now, and it will just work. So what if I wanted to have these stars, I don't know, rise up at the same time that they're scaling up? Let's go to our sky day. Let's find our stars group and just move. Well, let's go to sky night first. I'm going to set a Y position keyframe. Sky day, I'm going to increase that Y position so it moves down a bit. So it's hard to see because they're at 0% scale. It's impossible to see. But just making those changes to those states, now those stars are going to rise up and return back down as we toggle that on and off. That's what I really like about Rive. You're thinking in states, not just in timelines and keyframes. And the interesting thing is we haven't done any animation in these timelines, but they are timelines. You can animate things. If I wanted I don't know, smoke to be coming out of the chimney. I could animate that in a timeline and set it up on a state machine layer so that it's constantly playing, or so that it starts that timeline where the smoke is not visible and then starts pluming out of the chimney when we go to night. You can work however you want that way. But we're just over an hour. We completed our first Rive project. Again, give yourselves a round of applause. I think that we did an excellent job working through this and getting through the material. Um, Thank you all for showing up. Now, I would love to tell you just a little bit about Rive for Motion Designers, which is a course that I released a couple weeks ago. If you enjoyed this, I really think this is a no-brainer for motion designers to learn Rive because you can implement this on your website very easily. I show you how to do it in the course. I'm planning on making a YouTube video on how to implement it on lots of different platforms very soon. But I think, makes a motion designer's work stand out, especially as a portfolio site, because anything that is new that plays back at such high refresh rates, and that's the other thing, that we're not really working in frame rates. It's going to play back the highest refresh rate it possibly can at runtime. But if you want to learn this stuff, that's exactly what Rive for Motion Designers is for. It's just over 8 hours long. My students that are in it right now are absolutely loving it. I can tell that they're engaged. They're finding it that this is as exciting for them as it is for me. I always find that I do my best work when I'm doing something that I'm excited about, and Rive has got me really excited. Interactive design is definitely accessible again. It brings me back to the Flash days. Flash is basically the first animation software that I learned when I was in like junior high or even elementary school. And now that Flash is dead on the internet and we can't really have interactivity, Rive is bringing that back. And I think it's really an exciting time. They're developing, this is still the beta version, right? We're still in beta. They are adding new features all the time. It's a much smaller team that can make changes to the app very quickly. So if you find bugs or need new features, I mean, you should just watch the recap 2024 video that they put out on their YouTube channel of all the things they added to Rive last year alone. It's amazing. So yeah, let's go full screen. I think that's all I really want to say, other than the launch sale of Rive for Motion Designers is going on through May 21st. So we have just under a week left where you can, one, take $100 off the full price tag, and two, get access to a private community on my website with over 400 other people in it currently, where I'm doing a weekly call for the next 6 weeks. There are 6 more weeks that I'm offering this, but it's a place where you can share your projects. You can have a direct line of access to me. I will help you figure things out if you run into issues as you're learning Rive and building projects. And there are 3 kind of main projects in the course that you create. One of them is an interactive avatar. Actually, let me show you that real fast, because that one is one that I love seeing how students are personalizing. Let me open it up for you, if I can find it. There it is. So this is my personal little avatar that's interactive with the mouse. So first of all, it's idle animation, right? It's just kind of like bouncing. It's alive. It blinks randomly. You move your mouse in and boom, he starts looking at your mouse. He follows it around the screen. And then if you click, he high fives you and it pays attention to which side and where your mouse is. This is a really, really, really fun project. So if you're interested at all in learning Rive and you enjoy learning from me, this is absolutely the best time to purchase Rive for Motion Designers because, like I said, you get $100 off and you get access to that private cohort community, which I'm calling the State Machine Society. I think it's been really beneficial for the students that are in it. And like I said, that's going to go on for the next 6 weeks. There's a live call once a week for those 6 weeks, and I'm available to you throughout that whole time in the community. I think that's it. Thank you everyone so much. If you create this project, whether you did it live or you're going to continue and finish it and you want to share it, let me show you how to export a, no, I'm not going to show you how to export a video because it's interactive. Do a screen recording of yourself working with it in Rive and share it on Instagram, share it on Twitter, or wherever it is. Tag me at Jake in Motion. I would love to see it. I would love to repost it. Thank you so much for being here. I will open up the chat. If there are any questions, I'm here to answer them now. If you need to go, totally understand. The workshop is kind of over. I put a link to Rive for Motion Designers pinned at the top of the chat, by the way. and there will be a pinned comment if you're watching this after it's live. But if you have questions, now is definitely the time to ask. Otherwise, it's going to be real awkward because I'm going to be standing here trying to figure out what to say. Anybody watching golf? I'm going to keep an eye on the chat for questions, but I've got my PGA Tour app just blowing up my phone because the major, the PGA Championship's going on right now. I would love to be golfing right now. Okay. I don't see any questions. Oh, can you briefly explain runtimes? Yes. So runtimes, there are specific renderers that Rive uses. There's the Rive renderer, which is going to support every single feature that Rive has currently. But there's also the Canvas renderer. That is the most common for browser-based display of Rive, as far as I know. I'm not 100% an expert on Rive runtimes, but it can be run in a web browser. It can be run in an app. That's a different runtime. It can be run in Unreal Engine. I believe that it works in that other game engine. The name is escaping me. I'm just going to pull up the site because that would make this a lot easier. Rive runtimes. Yeah, so JavaScript in the web, Default, Apple, Unity, that's what I was trying to think of. Android, Unreal, Flutter, Framer, React, Webflow, React Native, Wix Studio, C++. So Rive, natively, you can work in this app natively and export it for any of those runtimes. It will work just fine. And Rive is constantly improving how it works with these different apps or runtimes. But as a motion designer, as the person working in Rive, it's always the same for you. You're always working in the same environment. It feels like Figma met After Effects and had a baby to me. And I get to control everything about how things work with the interactions. But then I can just export the Rive file for runtime and hand it off to someone who knows how to do that code stuff and access everything they need without having to try and translate all of that keyframe data. It's all baked into that Rive file. Is runtime JavaScript based? I believe so. I think that's what JavaScript web there. I'm going to put a link to the runtimes page of Rive in the chat right now. Is it possible to move interaction? Wait, let me scroll up in the chat real quick. Do you want to briefly explain data binding? No, I don't. Data binding, the simplest, that's one of the newest features of Rive. The simplest way that I can explain data binding from an After Effects perspective is it's like expressions in the sense that you can link one property to a custom property, or one property to another property, or a completely different property to a different property using converters, like a linear conversion, like you would with expressions. It's sort of like that. It's extremely powerful. I know they're going to just continue to expand it. It took me a while to wrap my head around it, but once I started thinking of it in terms of using a pick whip in After Effects with expressions and linking this property to this property and then converting it from, radians to just a degrees or something like that, it started to make more sense. That's basically what data binding allows you to do. But what's really powerful about data binding is that all of that data is available at runtime in the code, so it can be tied to things within an app environment or a website and control and interact with the code of the website. This is all stuff that I do not enjoy myself. I like to be the motion designer, the person who's designing the interactions, the UX designer. I don't want to deal with the code. So I haven't explored it too much, but from what I understand, it is possible with data binding for these specific properties that you link up to be viewable and or controlled by outside code. And outside code could do the same thing in the opposite direction, change things about, say, these inputs that we created. You could use something on the website to trigger one of the checkboxes or fire off an event, something like that. Golf animation coming soon. That would be fun. We should make like a putt-putt golf game in Rive, even if it's just one hole, because it could be done. Absolutely could be done. Can you show how to have an individual element animating but not looping? Like, what if the chimney smoke just played once? So some elements could only play once. Yes, this is actually another really cool thing about Rive. Let's get back into Rive real quick, and I'm going to just make another artboard. And let's just keep it real simple. I'm going to make a circle, and we'll animate it from the bottom to the top. So new timeline, we're going to set a Y position keyframe, and over 1 second, we're going to move it up. So we're animating, right? So that's just a simple timeline, plays through once. That is controlled right here. Let me get my camera on the right side. This is the playback type. So we don't need expressions to loop or to ping pong. We can just change the playback mode. So one shot means it's going to start and end. And in the state machine, if I play this, you see the progress of that timeline. It starts and it ends. But if I change this playback to a loop, then it's going to loop through that timeline indefinitely. If I change it to ping pong, then it's going to go and ping pong back and forth. I can add in easing, just like before. We can use this little flow panel, or there's a graph editor. If you want to use this like a graph editor, we can change this to have handles, and now it's going to look like that. And it's kind of like a ball bounce, right? Another really cool thing, since this is state-based and runtime based, I can change the speed right here. If I wanted to go twice as fast. If I wanted to blend it with other timelines, these are all things that you can do because it's all state-based. So lots of really cool possibilities there. Let me get the chat back up. Hopefully that answered your question. Is there a wiggle in Rive? No, not yet. That'd be cool if we could do some stuff. I'd like to see things like repeaters. There are not repeaters yet. Particle emitters. Yeah, there are definitely some features that I would like to see in Rive, but I'm kind of embracing the limitations, seeing what I can create, and just having fun creating interactions. If you go to the Rive marketplace, that is where anyone who creates a project in Rive, even on a free account, can share their work. It is so inspiring just to see what people are creating and thinking of to do inside of Rive. So go check that out. Where can we watch this again later? It'll be right on my YouTube channel. Same thing. You'll just go to the live section, I think, of my channel. Okay. Wait. I missed how you made the target so you could see the sun and moon rotation group. So what I did there was group objects. So if I make a new group with G on the keyboard, you select that and come over to the style. And there's lots of different styles for that icon. So that's how I changed it. Oh, it would really help if you could see the screen, wouldn't it? Let's do that again. Group, G on the keyboard, click. This is what a group looks like by default. If I select that group and change it to a target or target small, whatever I want, it's going to update the icon. That's how we did that. What's the reason that you didn't group the sun and moon together? I don't know. I could have put them both in the same. I would have had to rotate and offset the moon so it was 180 degrees from the sun. But yeah, that could have been simpler. Good catch. Is it possible to move interactions and conditions between elements in the hierarchy? Maybe if I want the switch group to be the hoverable, clickable element instead of the nested rectangle. Yes. You can choose any target you want to be what is being listened to in a listener. I just chose that toggle. We could have made it just the switch, and then the mouse would have had to click specifically on the switch or that circle, and it would have worked the same way. I just like doing that entire box, so it's easier to hit that target. Where can we watch this again later? I answered that. Can't wait for 3D transforms. Yes, I'm pretty sure that is coming. I saw that in the vector feathering blog post where they explained vector feathering, which is fascinating, by the way. That's another amazing thing about Rive is that it is a custom vector render engine. That's why it's so fast. And they came up with a method for blurring vectors that is purely vector-based. There's no rasterization going on. It's awesome. You should go read the blog post. But in there, they did mention that I think they're working on 2.5D, just like we have in After Effects. So 3D space, 2D layers, which will be awesome. Jake, have you tried my Rive toaster? Rive toaster. I don't think I know what you mean. Let me know what you mean. Does Rive have a setting for motion blur? No, but you can fake it with vector feathering. to an extent. There's some examples on their Instagram if you go look. How can you get featured by Rive Team when you publish on their marketplace? I think they're just looking at what's being shared in the marketplace and choosing things that they think are really unique and standing out. I somehow messed up my background color so it never goes back to day. No idea how I managed that. That might be because you forgot to set a day keyframe. So go back into your colors day and make sure that you set a default color keyframe for that artboard on day. And on night, change it to the night color. And if that doesn't fix it, it probably means that you have a keyframe on that color for that artboard somewhere else in a different timeline. And you'll have to try and find that. Any way to import frame-based sequences? Yes, there is, I believe. I'm pretty sure. Well, first of all, it supports Lottie. You can import Lottie files. Rive. Can it do SVG sequences? Is that how you would do it? Rive solos. You would use solos, which is not something we covered here, but I do cover in the course. But if you go to this link, oh, good, you fixed the day to night background issue. If you go to that link that I just shared, you'll learn about solos, and that's how you would switch between different frames within a sequence like that. Do you ever feel like you can have too many layers in the state machine? Not yet. I think that we could get to a point where there's so many that it would be nice to view them in a different way than just tabs. But it hasn't been too hard to manage for me yet. I've done some pretty complicated stuff, and I think it's all right. I definitely try to keep as much in the same states as possible so they can exist in the same layers, but I don't think there's an issue with how many layers you have. Search for the toaster in the marketplace and you'll find it. I want to see you trying to get to the high score. Oh, so you made it. I see. Let me get to the marketplace over here. Is there a reason to break all the timelines into different layers if they rely on the same trigger? No. The reason I did is because I was animating certain things at different rates. That's really the only reason I would break it out into layers. If the colors and the stars in the clouds and I mean, if everything moved at the exact same rate, I wanted the same duration for everything, and I wanted the same interpolation for everything, then you absolutely could stick it all in two different states and just have one layer. But I wanted the sun and the moon to have that elastic motion. I wanted that toggle switch to move a little bit more quickly than the transition of the colors changing. So that is why I broke it all out into different layers. Oh, that's right. Copying styles only works in design mode. Ah, I forgot about that. So I guess that wouldn't work when you're trying to copy and paste it with keyframes. Let me switch to design mode and just, I'm not going to troubleshoot this live. But you're right. Copy styles, I'm pretty sure it pops up with a message that says switch to design mode to paste styles. That's why we were having that trouble. Let me find your toaster. Leo. All right. Another question. Wait, let me make sure I didn't skip anything. Yeah. Just throwing out another quick question. Can you create symbols like back in Flash days, like a pre-comp that can be updated and changed everywhere? Yes, that is called a nested artboard. Think of it just like a pre-comp. You can create an artboard, any size, whatever you want inside of it. That example I showed of my avatar, there was a burst on the high five. That was a nested artboard that just aligned to wherever I clicked and fired off the playback of that timeline when you click. So artboards can be nested in other artboards, just like comps can be nested or pre-comped. Let's take a look at this toaster game. Again, we're doing it live, everybody. Okay, so this is by Leo. He's in the chat. Part of your Rive research project, wanted to make a sassy, lighthearted game and finally knew what it should be about when I left my slice of bread too long in the toaster. All right, think you're the toast of the town. Crank that lever, but watch out. This isn't a drill. It's a grill. Okay. Wow, this is really fun. So I have to stop it at the right time. Boom. Okay. So I didn't let it. This is so cool. I love this project. We're going to let it toast for a little bit. What a creative idea. I love this. I'm going to fire that. Hopefully I don't burn my toast. The eyes. Oh man, this is so cool. Oh no! I was just about to hit stop. This is awesome. Excellent, excellent work here. I love the creativity. So much fun. Let's stop it now. Okay, I went a little too long. That is so much fun, Leo. Really, really great work. I love that. Okay, everyone. I think I'm going to end it there. Wait. We have more questions. Let me just check the chat. Does that nested comp work with changeable data and text? Yes, you can create. I've done it with data binding. You can make reusable elements like that. Can you create animations within animations like pre-comps and After Effects? Yes, works the same way. Nested artboards. Was your right artboard only for reference? Could you delete it before exporting that Rive runtime? Yes, yes, and yes. It was only for reference. You don't have to delete it. It would probably save on file size a little bit, but it's already so lightweight. By the way, let me show you. Let's export this, and I'll show you how incredibly small this file is. We'll just put it there. Why not? And I will find it. It is a whopping 13.3 kilobytes for that animation. Even if this was a static animation just going back and forth, imagine how much bigger a GIF would be. That's what another thing that just kills me about Rive. It's so fast because of how small the file sizes are, and the renderer renders so smoothly. It works on any device. It's just such a cool format. I love it. You fixed your stars. Good. Okay. Everybody, I think I'm going to end it here. I cannot say thank you enough for showing up and for being here, for participating. Like I said, if you share these projects online, tag me at Jake in Motion. I would love to see them. That exports as a .riv file. That is the for runtime version of the file. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Don't hesitate to ask questions, leave comments here. You can email me at support@jakeinmotion.com. I just appreciate you so much. Go check out Rive for Motion Designers, and I love you all. Have a fantastic day. Now, how do we end a stream? Probably the big button that says end stream. Bye, everybody.